Good evening, everyone. I'm Vikrant Sir. Today we are going to discuss this year's UPSC exams, main exams, essay paper 2026. Yesterday I had given a brief overview of the essay paper, but today we are going to go into little bit deeper aspect, and we are going to explore those aspects which will help us to write a better essay of 1000 words. In this attempt, we will also try to explore the different dimensions that you could incorporate, but we will discuss them in brief, because after all I'm going to share this material with all of you on our unique app. PDF will be shared and you will be able to go deeper into all details of the relevant topics. So let me ask you all online people and probably my students who are listening to this live YouTube lecture, are you able to clearly listen to me and my voice? Yes. Have you been able to follow what I'm saying? Please reply in chat box. I am desperately looking at chat box and I'm going to mark the important points now, and I'm going to explain you what are the dimensions you should majorly focus on. Yes. Online people? Great. So I am receiving reply of some people, and thanks a lot for your prompt reply. I'm looking at live chat as well as all of you and the screen. Okay, so let's start with the first topic. Oxymoron reflects the ironies of life. Okay, so here you have to focus on few keywords. One is oxymoron, okay, then ironies of life. So here ironies, and they are related to life. This is important. Okay, so you can begin with explaining the meaning of the topic or statement. Okay, so what does it mean when you say oxymoron reflects the ironies of life? It means this: understanding the life through contradictions and paradoxes. So life is full of what? Contradictions and paradoxes. So what kind of thought process would you follow? That contradictions eventually force us for reconciliation, and this reconciliation eventually brings harmony, and that makes life harmonious and peaceful. Okay, so how will you explore the topic? So first start explaining what is oxymoron. Okay, so oxymoron is a combination of contradictory terms that we employ, and when such contradiction arises, there is a intellectual tension, but at the same time it also reveals a deeper meaning. So what could be examples? So let's look at these examples. Okay, deafening silence. So when you say something is deafening, means it is very loud, but is it not against the word silence? Or when you say living death, death is the end of life, but when you say living death, means you are experiencing something which is akin to death, at the same time you are living, right? Cruel kindness, right? So these terms highlight paradoxes in life, right? So how it is connected to life, that you have to explain. Okay, so you also have to explain that life is full of paradoxes. There are contradictions. For example, number one, happiness can coexist with sorrow, right? So there are mixed emotions. Second, freedom comes with responsibility. Third, strength is revealed when you feel vulnerable, weak. Development also brings destruction. So the ultimate message you can give through all these points is life cannot always be understood through binaries or in black and white. It is full of mixture, gray areas, right? So this is what you are going to explain in this point. Then next is philosophical proposition that you must explore here is life is not simply about binaries again, good versus bad, success versus failure, freedom versus control, individual versus society, development versus environment, right? So we cannot look at life in this way. So what's the way forward? Okay, way forward is opposition or opposites can coexist, And these opposites or contradiction help us to understand deeper truths. Okay, so you can point out further paradoxes in life. Okay, so for example, suffering creates wisdom, and wisdom in turn leads to happiness. But happiness and suffering follow each other. Freedom brings responsibility, knowledge reveals our ignorance, strength reveals our vulnerability, and mortality means death brings meaning to life. So these are some of the paradoxes of life. Now in this, there are various thinkers who have contributed in a variety of ways to this concept. Okay, for example, Socrates talks about recognizing one's ignorance. Heraclitus says everything is impermanent. Okay, then Aristotle talks about golden mean. He says virtue lies in between two extremes. Buddha also talks about sufferings and impermanence of the life. Hegel, who talks about dialectical theory, where he talks about thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, right? So these philosophers can be brought in. Then you can also talk about nature of human beings. Okay, so how human beings aspire for contradictory things at the same time. For example, we love freedom, but we also seek comfort in security. We want to assert our individuality, but we also want to belong to somewhere. So this is also contradiction. We have ambition, but we also want to have a containment, samadhan. We want privacy, but when it is convenient, we give it up. We want success, and success involves struggle, pain, trouble, but at the same time, we want peace. So human life is full of paradoxes. Human nature is after contradictions, but at the same time, ethical maturity lies in balancing competing desires. Okay, how you balance them. Now, what about ethical paradoxes? Do you know these ethical paradoxes are also discussed as ethical dilemma? For example, whether to tell the truth to a patient or behave with compassion with him. Liberty, whether to respect liberty of individual or to compromise it for the sake of collective well-being. Whether to show loyalty towards our own people or treat all of them impartially. Whether to seek justice, follow the principle of justice, or show mercy to the person. Even in administration, you come across this paradox. On one hand, transparency is demanded, but on the other hand, confidentiality is also important, right? So you can give here a message that if you want to balance it out in ethics, you need these things. Okay, moral reasoning, proportionality, then conscience is also needed, prudence, empathy, long-term thinking. These are some of the points which will help you to resolve these ethical dilemmas. Then you can highlight other dimension like social dimension. In society, we see contradiction. For example, connectivity has increased, but the same thing has led to more isolation. Legal equality has improved, but still there is inequality. Individualism is on the rise, but there is also need for community. Then globalization is happening, but it is also acting as a cause of cultural revival, right? Nativism, what we call it, right? So, next dimension you can explore is political paradoxes. For example, majority rule is must, right? That is how democracy works, but at the same time, minority protection is necessary. Strong government is necessary, but it must remain limited, otherwise it would encroach upon our rights. Popular decisions sometimes are needed, but they may conflict with long-term public interest. Popular decision means what we call populism or freebies. Okay. Then, governance paradoxes I talked about earlier. Efficiency versus equity, centralization versus decentralization, compassion versus professional detachment. So these paradoxes talk a lot about human life in various spheres. Okay. Even there are economic contradictions, like economic growth happens at a high speed, but it also brings inequality. Materialistic consumption sometimes threatens happiness. Globalization makes us vulnerable to shocks elsewhere. Efficiency, when we compromise, okay, it builds resilience, or resilience is compromised when we try to increase efficiency, right? So, है ना? Even technological dimension is important. The technology has these positive things, right? Productivity, knowledge, healthcare, governance. But these are the negative things that can happen due to technology. So this is a paradox that you should be able to highlight. So look at this. How many dimensions we so far covered? 13, and there are many more. For example, environmental paradox. These are some of the dimensions of environmental paradox. For example, you want infrastructure, but it leads to displacement. You want urbanization, but it harms ecological resilience, right? Then look at IR. Okay, in IR we want power, but race for power threatens peace. We want to protect national interest, but at the same time we want global cooperation. We want to protect our sovereignty, but still we are interdependent. So these are the international relations, right? Even in human relationship also you can talk about things like more you trust, more you become vulnerable, right? More you need protection, more you compromise independence. More you need friendship, there will be uncomfortable things like honesty, right? Even you can talk about history and how history is full of contradiction. In Indian philosophy also, some philosophies like Bhagavad Gita, Buddhism, Jainism, even Gandhi talked about contradictory things, right? हाँ, तो ये भी आपको highlight करना है. Then you can also go deeper, highlighting different types of contradiction. For example, false. Okay, false means arising from misunderstanding, like science versus spirituality. Manageable means which you can balance. Okay, but fundamental, which you cannot reconcile, like this. Okay, it is very difficult, like life versus death, individualism versus belonging. Somewhere compromises are needed, right? So even you can bring critical perspective. Critical perspective tells you that not every contradiction is desirable. No, it is not. Even there are some natural paradoxes. Okay, and you need wisdom to accept them. And socially created contradiction, which you can try to manage. Okay, so this way you can go for counter argument. Then you can talk about wisdom, how to navigate this contradiction that we talked in solving ethical dilemma, all these things, right? Critical thinking, empathy, proportionality, ethical courage, long-term consequences, constitutional morality. These things can help us. Then these are some of the synthesis that we talked about, Hegelian approach, right? For example, when you try to balance growth and environment, it leads to sustainable development. Right? When you try to balance authority and participation, it leads to participative governance. That way you can show synthesis and your wisdom. Then conclusion. This message you need to give in the final conclusion. The wisdom of living lies not in blindly choosing between opposite, but in discovering higher harmony that can emerge from them. So discovering synthesis between thesis and antithesis. That is the wisdom. Okay. Again, you have to conclude like this. Okay, that some contradictions are inevitable. Life is full of complexities, dynamic things are there, right? But they are not necessarily absurdities. They reveal the deeper aspect of the life that you have to talk about in final message. So how many of you have understood the final message of this topic? Yes. Would you be able to write a beautiful topic around all these points? Don't worry, I'm going to share all these PDF with you. Okay, all topics, and I'm going to make sure that you understand and articulate very well, and you are able to write a beautiful 1000-word essay. So please reply in chat box. Have you understood my point? So that we can move to second part of. Please reply in chat box. Great, thank you, Zania. Now, a grateful mind is very beautiful. Okay, so the focus is on mind. But what kind of mind? A grateful one. So you have to explain the topic first. That a grateful mind becomes a beautiful mind. So first explain the meaning of the statement. That gratitude, this value which is hidden here, is the source of inner beauty. It also means when you appreciate life, you also become responsible. Okay, so you have to define the word like gratitude. What does it mean? What is beauty in this context? Beauty is here moral and emotional excellence. Okay. And how does it help? That entitlement leads to appreciation. Ego is replaced by humility. Comparison is replaced by contentment. Isolation is replaced by connectedness. And this all happens because of gratitude. Now, how does this happen? For that, you need to explore the concept of gratitude in detail. Okay. So what does gratitude means? It is not merely saying thank you. It involves all these things. Okay. Awareness about things in our life, appreciating them, showing humility that yes, we are not that great, right? Recognition of other people and their value in our life, and reciprocity, reciprocating towards people, right? So it is a mindset. Okay. Now, why is grateful mind beautiful? Now, this is core of your essay. Why aspect? Okay. Why? Because a person who is grateful becomes humble, but not submissive. Content, but not complacent. Ambitious, without entitlement. Successful, but no arrogance. Powerful, but no exploitation. Now, these things make a grateful mind a beautiful one. When a person possesses a grateful mind, all these things makes his mind, beautiful one. Now, next question is, how gratitude is a philosophy of life? Because it helps us in certain ways. For example, our focus shifts from deficit to abundance. What we don't have, that is no longer our concern. What we have, that is being appreciated. Then we recognize interconnected nature of life. Okay. Then we appreciate what we have, and it encourages strivings without entitlement. Okay. So it is not simply stopping ambition. It is moderating, entitlement. Okay. Then you can talk about various philosophers who talked about gratitude as a virtue. Okay. Then you can also talk about psychological benefits. Okay. Gratitude, for example, it reduces resentment, envy, it reduces entitlement, it also refrains us or prevents us from comparing with each other. What it brings is contentment, resilience, humility, mental well-being, right? So these are the benefits. So you can talk about benefits of gratitude in human life. Then you can also talk about desires and their role in connection with gratitude. What happens? There is a desire with gratitude or without gratitude. Okay. Then relationships, how relationship foster because of gratitude, whether family, friend, workplace, society, these different arenas you can explore. Okay. Then you can also talk about it as a moral virtue. Okay, how morally connected gratitude is. Okay. Then in public service, how a grateful civil servant excels, that you can talk about. Okay, he is more accountable, more empathetic, more constitutionally moral. Okay. Then you can also talk about a grateful leader, what he does in his life. For example, he shares credit with others. He recognizes always team efforts. He appreciates criticism and encourages collaboration. These are the attributes of a grateful leader. So you can also expand your essay in this direction. Then you can also connect it to democracy, even though it is not a significant dimension of the essay, but still you can bring in. Then you can also talk about social cohesion, how gratitude contributes to social cohesion by countering all these things and, by promoting these things. Okay. Then consumerism, again, it can act as a counter to consumerism. That also you can talk about. Then you can also bring environmental or nature's dimension here in gratitude, though not necessary. Then towards civilization, how it helps us to protect our great heritage when we are grateful to our ancestors and their contribution to language, literacy, literature and medicine and democracy. Okay. Then how gratitude helps us to deal with adversity. So see, these are the multiple dimensions that you can bring in. How gratitude is linked with intellectual progress. Okay, these all dimensions are important. For example, it brings intellectual humility. It increases openness to learning. It increases respect for evidence. It also makes all these things acceptable in scientific arena, right? And because of that, scientific progress is possible. When a society or person becomes arrogant, that believes that they know everything, then they stop learning, right? Critical perspective is also needed, right? That gratitude is necessary, but it should not lead to all these things like reinforcing injustice, okay, then undermining self-respect, then encouraging oppression of others or creating complacency. ये नहीं होना चाहिए. So इसके लिए क्या होना चाहिए? There should be all these things: consideration for justice, rights, dignity and reforms. Okay, so gratitude should not lead to all these things. ये critical perspective आपको देना है. Then you can talk about synthesis. Okay, gratitude counters all these things and eventually leads to harmony in this way. Okay, ये जो linkage है, ये जो दिखाई दे रहा है, awareness leads to appreciation, appreciation leads to humility, humility makes one responsible, then he reciprocates and reciprocity leads to harmony. So ये linkage आपको दिखाना है ना? Then conclusion. Okay, this message is important, that instead of asking what life has given me, what can I give back to life, ये important है ना? तो ये message आपको ultimately इस topic में देना है. So online people, have you understood this? Yes, ये important है आपके लिए. Please respond. Now, third topic in section is a thorn is a change bud. Now, it is a metaphorical topic. A thorn is a metaphor. Similarly, a bud is a metaphor. Okay. And changing is the process that is implied in this topic. So, what is required here is understanding transformation behind behavior. Okay. So, when a person behaves in different way, what kind of things have happened behind this behavior? Okay. So how vulnerability leads to adversity, adversity leads to hardening and hardening leads to renewal. ये process आपको unfold करना है. So let's try to explain the meaning of different metaphors. For example, bud represents what? Innocence. Innocence of a person or his or her potential, his or her vulnerability, the hope they carry, the growth they aspire for. These are all represent bud, right? But thorn represent the pain they have, the defensiveness they acquire, the aggression they display, the resistance they offer to something and mistrust they have about others. So ये जो transformation है bud to thorn, ये कैसे होता है ये आपको बताना है. Okay, so कैसे? People are shaped by what? Experiences, circumstances and institutions. Okay, ये process आपको explain करना है. Okay, और message भी देना है that ethical society must prevent birds from becoming thorn and help damaged thorn to heal. Okay, so ये जो message है ये आपको बताना है. ठीक है. So bird का transformation अगर thorn में हो रहा है तो thorn को understand करना है और उसकी responsibility लेके उसको heal करने में मदद करनी है. ठीक है. That is the role of ethical society. Okay, now let's go to little bit deeper aspect. What do you mean by changed bird? It is not a bad bird, right? It means transformation, it means understanding, it means also past experiences. Okay, so how? Human beings are shaped. Again, you have to talk about human life and their transformation. What are the factors which shape us? So first is experience, second relationship shape us, our culture grooms us, right? Institution instills certain values within us. Opportunities also offer some transformation, and adversities. These are the few prominent factors that have key role in shaping our life. Okay. So conclusion is our identity is not dynamic, it is not fixed. It is dynamic but not fixed. Okay. So how do bird becomes thorns? So you have to explain the process. For example, betrayal leads to distrust. Neglect of someone makes the person insecure. Humiliation leads to aggression. Repeated failure brings in cynicism. So have you seen cynical people? Cynical. Rejection leads to alienation. When someone gets rejected, he feels alienated. Fear leads to controlling behavior. So ये जो transformation है ये आपको explain करना है that reflects the profound understanding of human life. Okay. Then adversity का भी आपको role explain करना है that the transformation that adversity brings in is not necessary transformation. Sometimes it could be negative, okay, but sometimes it could be positive. So what is key insight here? Adversity influences destiny, but it doesn't determine it. What is the outcome is influenced by adversity, but what it will be exactly is not exactly influenced by adversity. Okay. Now let's look at understanding without excusing. Two extremes. Pure punishment is an extreme, okay, where they ignore the past sufferings. But pure justification is also extreme, right? Why? Because they are saying that suffering makes wrongdoing acceptable, which is really not, right? So ethical approach is this: understand cause, determine accountability, protect the real victim, and ensure rehabilitation. This is the ethical approach we should adopt towards those who have become thorns. Okay. Then you can employ the same thing in criminal justice system, which Aristotle also talked about: rehabilitation, reintegration into the society. Right? In this, you have to consider all these things: neglect, poverty, addiction, social exclusion was there, lack of education was there, institutional failure was there. ये सब आपको expect करना है. Then what is the way forward to prevent bud from becoming thorn? So one is education, okay, where it gives emotional security, values, creativity, critical thinking is being taught, inclusion is being promoted, confidence is being created. This prevents a bud from becoming a thorn, right? So how to do it? Identify early bullying, isolation, discrimination, emotional distress. If school and education system does it, then we will be able to prevent bud from becoming thorn, right? Then family has a key role, right? Family is everything. So they can promote this positive environment, but there should not be this negative environment in family. Okay, ये आपको बताना है. Then society also can create thorns, and these are the things in society leads to thorns. ये आपको बताना है. So society also has a key role to play here, right? For example, humiliation, discrimination, lack of representation may convert a group into thorn, right? Then even poverty inequality has a role, right? So what we need is preventive social ethics in various spheres. You can talk about John Rawls and his positive discrimination, right? ये आपको चाहिए सब, है ना? So देखो कितने सारे dimension हैं. Even political dimension is also necessary. That in politics also we should take care that people have opportunity to do all this: negotiation, grievance redressal, representation, protest. अगर आप उनको protest ही नहीं करने दोगे तो violence में उतर जाएंगे लोग, right? ये आपको बताना है. IR में भी important है, right? Wherever IR conflict is involved, we have to have these things like dialogue should happen. जैसे बॉर्डर डिस्प्यूट में होता है, कॉन्फिडेंस बिल्डिंग मेजर्स होते हैं, एड्रेसिंग ग्रीवांसेस पे फोकस किया जाता है, इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन को बढ़ावा दिया जाता है, लाइक FTAs आर बीइंग क्रिएटेड, राइट? देन एनवायरमेंटल डायमेंशन कैन ऑल्सो बी ब्रॉट, राइट? बिकॉज जो भी डिजास्टर्स होते हैं, नेचुरल डिजास्टर्स, okay, they can create thorn like effect. Okay, so for example, you might have seen the water scarcity, how people fight for water when there is water scarcity. You might have seen water tankers, right? So ये कुछ example है जो आपको बता सकते हैं कि environment dimension भी important है यहाँ. But again, it is distantly connected. Then you can connect it to governance. Okay, how crime and protest and unemployment, pollution, they are linked and create effect like thorn like effect. Okay, then leadership also. What is the role of leader in identifying thorn, right? Seeing the bird inside the thorn. Then technological dimension is also there, which you can bring in. Okay, then philosophical perspective also is there. Then counter argument is there. Okay, two counter arguments are there, that not every thorn is necessarily victim and understanding can become excusing. These are some of the counter arguments. Even you can also argue that not everyone can be transformed, but this could be extreme counter argument in my opinion. Okay, are you getting this point? Yes. हाँ, ये avoid करो ये argument because it appears to be cynicism. But ये पहले वाली जो दो argument है, they appears to be sensible, but you can counter them also, right? हाँ. Then talk about higher synthesis. Okay. So for example, how to prevent, how to understand. Prevention के लिए ये सब चीज़ें हैं, love, education, opportunity, dignity, security. But understanding के लिए ये भी आपको देखना है, psychological factor, institutional failure, social factors. Transformation के लिए ये solution offer करो, counseling, rehabilitation, inclusion, economic opportunity, restorative justice, ये सब चलेगा, ठीक है. And then comes the conclusion, है ना. So conclusion ये होगा आपका, do not merely cut the thorn, understand why it grew. Okay, ये important ethical message है इस topic का. So have you understood guys the message here hidden in this essay? Yes, I hope you have understood. Please respond. Now fourth topic, when two elephants fight, it is the grass that gets trampled. Okay, now what is unique about this topic, it is contemporary topic, it is IR based topic, it is related to what is happening on world stage as well. Okay, and another speciality of this topic or interesting thing about this topic was asked in last year's UPSC test series of Unique Academy. Okay, so how many of you have seen the file that I have shared on Telegram channel? Yes, have you seen the file? Please respond. Hmm? Have you seen the file on Telegram channel, Unique Ethics Discussion Group, of the previous year test series, which help you to understand how it was targeted? Even the leadership essay was asked in this year test series. Not exactly same, but it was focused on who is the best leader. Okay, that way. Okay, so let's look at, this is another metaphorical essay, okay, where it says, when two elephant fights, it is the grass that gets trampled. So elephant and grass are the metaphors. Okay, and fighting is a process. So what does this metaphor mean? Okay, elephant implies powerful actors, while fight implies conflict, competition, confrontation, while grass implies weak, vulnerable, dependent actors. And what do you mean by trampled? There is a damage, collateral or externalities. Okay, so let's look at idea. Core idea is those who have less power, they often bear the greatest consequences, particularly negative consequences. Okay, so what is thesis here? Central thesis or primary claim that we talk about in essay writing. Power asymmetry creates vulnerability. Okay, this is also what Rawls talks about. Rawls talks in social contract theory that when two parties at different level enter into social contract, the powerful party gains at the cost of powerless, right? So powerful actor can externalize cost. They can put cost on common people. So has it not been happening in democracy like India? Weak stakeholders bear disproportionate losses. Power creates greater ethical responsibility. An institution must protect vulnerable. These are the part of your central thesis which you need to explore in your main body. Okay, so power leads to conflict. Conflict leads to externalities. It requires justice. Justice requires regulation, and regulation enforcement requires cooperation. So these are the processes or way in which you should proceed. Okay, so let's talk about who are the elephants. So you have to enlist the entities that resemble to elephant. For example, powerful nations are akin to elephants. Political parties, even when they clash with each other, they are akin to elephants. Large corporations or dominant social groups, they are like elephants, like powerful entities. Then powerful institutions, whether they are government or non-government. Technological platforms like social media or technological giants, even powerful individuals, they are like elephants and they hold disproportionate power. That is their common feature. Who is the grass? Then enlist the people who come under the category of grass. So this could be common man, family, farmers, workers, smaller businessmen, minority, children, even women. Okay, then local communities, future generations, these are all the grass. And what is their common feature? They have limited bargaining power. That is what you have to highlight. Okay, then what do you mean by trampled mean? Okay, so it could mean loss of livelihood. Okay, loss of livelihood. It could lead to displacement. It creates unemployment, inflation, rise in prices, environmental degradation when jungles are cut down for big projects, insecurity happens, right, because of the clashes, loss of rights, fundamental rights violation होता है, social instability हो जाती है और उससे psychological trauma भी. So these are the ways in which grass gets trampled. So these are the negative effect. Okay, then power symmetry कैसे होती है? पावर का मतलब अलग अलग है. हैविंग रिसोर्सेस इज पावर. इंफॉर्मेशन की भी असिमेट्री हो सकती है, बार्गेनिंग कैपेसिटी की भी हो सकती है, या फिर पॉलिटिकल इन्फ्लुएंस आपका कितना है एज अ ग्रुप, उसका भी हो सकता है. देन वेदर यू हैव लीगल कैपेसिटी और नॉट, लीगल राइट्स है कि नहीं आपके पास, इकोनॉमिक रिजिलियंस है क्या, इससे भी हो सकता है. सो इससे क्या होता है, इम्पैक्ट ऑफ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफन इंक्रीजेस एज द कैपेसिटी टू एब्जॉर्ब इट कॉस्ट डिक्रीजेस. सो इसका इम्पैक्ट उन्हीं लोगों पे ज़्यादा होता है जिनका वो कैपेसिटी नहीं है टू एब्जॉर्ब द कॉस्ट. देन यू कैन ब्रिंग इन IR रिलेशन, एज आई टोल्ड यू इट इज कंटेम्पररी. सो ब्रिंग वॉर्स, ट्रेड वॉर्स. ओके, then powerful state, how they intervene into weaker states and their affairs, how they topple the government, how they install the puppet government, ये सब आपको बताना है. Then proxy conflict के बारे में बताओ. जो बड़े बड़े कंट्री है, they don't directly fight with each other, they indirectly fight with each other. तो इसकी वजह से ये सब होता है और इसका खामियाजा किसको भुगतना पड़ता है? It is to the common man who live in those countries, right? Then you can also talk about economic conflict here. ओके, इकोनॉमिक कन्फ्लिक्ट में बहुत बार क्या होता है, ट्रेड वॉर्स होते हैं, राइट, या प्रेडेटरी प्राइसिंग होता है. समझ में आ रहा है आपको? हाँ, वह इसमें सफ़र कौन होता है? कंज्यूमर, फार्मर्स. ओलिगोपोली भी होती है इसमें. हैव यू हर्ड अबाउट ओलिगोपोली? राइट, तो ये भी होता है. स्मॉलर बिजनेसेस सफ़र, तो ये भी बताना है आपको. ठीक है. देन कॉर्पोरेट कंपटीशन भी बताना है, नॉट ओनली ट्रेड बट कॉर्पोरेट कंपटीशन. इसमें प्राइस वॉर्स होते हैं, फोर्सफुल मर्जर एक्विजिशन होते हैं, कभी कभी लिटिगेशंस, लॉज एंड सूज एंड सूट एंड केसेस. देन एक्सक्लूसिव कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स भी साइन किए जाते हैं, राइट. हाँ, तो इसका खामियाजा किसको भुगतना पड़ता है? हु सफर्स? स्मॉल सप्लायर्स, वर्कर्स, कंज्यूमर्स, राइट. पॉलिटिकल पोलराइजेशन, इसका भी इफेक्ट लिखो कि ये कैसे ये सब पैदा करता है, एंड इट अल्टीमेटली अफेक्ट्स द कॉमन मैन, सिटीजन्स, राइट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल डिस्ट्रप्शन ऑफ पब्लिक सर्विस, right, it leads to suffering of citizens. Then bureaucratic turf wars, ये थोड़ा टेक्निकल है, आप अवॉइड कर सकते हो, बट yes you can bring in, but it is not directly connected. Social conflict के बारे में भी बोल सकते हो, that how different two groups when they create social conflict, like it happened in Manipur. Okay, common man pays the price. Environmental dimension, ये directly connected नहीं, फिर भी आप ला सकते हो. Then डेवलपमेंट वर्सेस एनवायरनमेंट का डिबेट है, इसमें भी कैसे कन्फ्लिक्ट होता है, इट लीड्स टू पोल्यूशन, लॉस ऑफ लाइवलीहुड, रिसोर्स डिप्लीशन, ये सब बता सकते हो, बट इट इज नॉट डायरेक्टली कनेक्टेड टॉपिक. देन यू कैन ऑल्सो टॉक अबाउट फ्यूचर जनरेशंस. ओके, हाँ, कि फ्यूचर जनरेशन कैसे ग्रास की तरह है, दैट एक्शंस डन इन करंट पीरियड are going to affect future generation who don't have any negotiating power at all now. Okay, ये भी आपको बताना है. So this is how you are going to explain here. Okay. ये बहुत सारे डायमेंशन है, यू डोंट हैव टू इनकॉर्पोरेट ऑल ऑफ दिस. ओके, हाँ, ये एक बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है. ओके, प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ द ग्रास. ओके, सो डेमोक्रेसी में ये कैसे करते हैं ये आप बता सकते हो. इसमें आता है पब्लिक कंसल्टेशन, सिटीजन्स पार्टिसिपेशन, सोशल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट भी आता है व्हेनेवर बिग प्रोजेक्ट्स आर क्रिएटेड और बिग प्लान्स आर मेड. एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट भी हो सकता है, ग्रीवांस रिड्रेसल भी हो सकता है. ओके, देन स्टेट का रोल क्या है. ओके, रेगुलेट करना, ये स्टेट का रोल है. देन प्रोटेक्ट करना वल्नरेबल को, जैसे कंज्यूमर है. प्रिवेंटिंग मोनोपोली. ओके, देन एनफोर्सिंग द स्टैंडर्ड्स, प्रिवेंटिंग डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, प्रोवाइडिंग सोशल प्रोटेक्शन, ये स्टेट का रोल है, ये आप बता सकते हो. Then you can also talk about counter argument. Is competition always bad? ये counter argument है. ठीक है, तो इसमें आपको differentiate करना है constructive competition, okay, which leads to all these positive effects. But ये negative भी हो सकता है ना, इसके लिए regulate करना है. ठीक है, not eliminating competition. Then you can talk about synthesis. ये process दिखाना है आपको. Okay, synthesis से क्या होता है, पॉजिटिव कोऑपरेशन होता है. ठीक है, हाँ. देन यू कैन आस्क दीज क्वेश्चंस. ओके, ये सवाल आपको हेल्प करेंगे टू क्रिएट द आंसर्स एंड राइट द एसे. ओके, देन फाइनल टेक अवे. You can say that conflict and competition are inevitable, but collateral damage is not. This is important message. Are you getting the point? Yes. ये समझ में आ रहा है आपको? Important message. Huh? So, guys, have you understood this fourth topic of section A? Please respond in chat box. Important है, आपका feedback मेरे लिए important है, so that I would come to know whether I am going in right direction or not. Now we are moving towards section B, but before that I need your feedback. Yes, I am looking at live chat. Great. Thank you, Sanchit and Sania. Now, next topic in section B. Now, section B was more GS oriented. Okay, even though its tone was philosophical, but it was more GS oriented. So, you can bring in many examples from GS as well, some arguments from GS. So, nature is the symbol of spirit. So, this topic is close to the philosophical framework known as naturalism. Okay, that we are going to learn in philosophical essay writing. Now, according to naturalism, nature is more important because man is part of nature and he has forgotten that he is part of nature. Okay. Now, what is nature here? In this topic, nature is more than physical world. So, it acts as a mirror to us. It mirrors our life. It is also sometimes act as a teacher. Okay, it teaches us certain things, and it also acts as a symbol of inner spirit, which is the core theme of this topic. Is this clear? Yes, guys. हाँ, अब decode the statement. इसमें हर एक जो कीवर्ड है इसको आपको एक्सप्लोर करना है. जैसे नेचर का मतलब क्या है? सो इट कुड मीन फिजिकल वर्ल्ड, देन लाइफ एंड इकोसिस्टम्स, द प्रोसेसेस ऑफ नेचर, लार्ज कॉस्मिक ऑर्डर, ये सब नेचर में आता है. व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय स्पिरिट? स्पिरिट का मतलब ये है कि कॉन्शियसनेस, एनर्जी, वैल्यूज, क्रिएटिविटी, मीनिंग, इवन ट्रांसेंडेंस. ट्रांसेंडेंस गोइंग बियॉन्ड. ओके, सो व्हाट डज इट मीन? जो विजिबल फॉर्म है नेचर का वो हमें पॉइंट आउट कर रहा है किस तरफ? इनविजिबल फॉर्म की तरफ और इनविजिबल मीनिंग की तरफ. ये कोर मैसेज है. सो लेट्स लुक एट सेंट्रल थेसिस in order to explain the topic. Central thesis is like main idea, okay, around which your essay is going to revolve. तो ये मेन आइडिया क्या बताती है? ओके, एक चीज, नेचर रिफ्लेक्ट्स इनटू ह्यूमन वर्ल्ड. हमारा जो इनर बीइंग है, इनर वर्ल्ड है, विच इज रिफ्लेक्टेड बाय नेचर. सेकंड, it also reveals that we are all interconnected, not only with each other as human being but also with nature. Then it also inspires us transcendence, to go beyond what is visible. So इसको कहते हैं transcendence. It also gives us certain values and it also creates some ethical responsibility. अब इस हर एक dimension को आप main body में explore करोगे. So let's look at what are those dimensions. First, nature as a mirror. Okay, for example, sunrise teaches us hope and renewal. River teaches us go on continuously. Mountain gives us courage and stability. Forest becomes symbol of mystery and interconnectedness. Changing seasons teach us that life is impermanent. And ocean talks about infinity. So इससे क्या हो रहा है? Nature becomes a language in which human emotions are explained. Okay, now why is that so? ये why aspect. Because human beings are part of nature. We cannot completely separate ourselves from the nature no matter how much we progress. So why? Because we depend on air, water, food, sunlight, ecosystem. These are the basic reasons. But our consciousness, the mental content, has also contents from nature, within nature. So nature becomes conscious of itself through human beings. So we are nature. So we are become conscious of ourselves and the nature because we are nature. So self awareness भी हमें nature से मिल रहा है. Okay. Then look at nature and its interconnectedness. For example, in forest, these things depend on each other. Similarly, human beings also dependent on these things in society. So similarity दिखानी है, that how human beings and nature mirror each other, right? Then Indian philosophical perspective भी आप ला सकते हो, जैसे अद्वैत वेदांता में या अद्वैत फिलोसॉफी में सब कुछ एक ही है ना, यूनिटी है, ये बताया गया है. बुद्धिज्म में भी इम्परमानेंस के बारे में या इंटरडिपेंडेंस के बारे में बोला है. गांधी ऑल्सो टॉक्स अबाउट रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. Okay, so second dimension of nature as a teacher is it teaches us certain things. For example, resilience, patience. Okay, seed becomes a tree. It teaches us patience. Vastness of universe teaches us humility, that we are very small in the nature. Interdependence from ecosystem. We teach renewal after every spring, right? Then balance, ecological equilibrium teaches us balance. So these are the few things, right? Nature also inspires creativity. For example, literature, poetry, painting, music, architecture, science, tech. These are all in a way inspired by nature, right? We biomimic things in science. Then nature and science, they are interlinked, right? For example, science asks these questions, spirituality asks these questions, and nature is both. Okay, nature is involved in science as well as spirituality. Then nature and the sublime. Nature can evoke certain emotions like these. Okay, for example, Himalayas, oceans, star-filled sky, solar eclipse, thunderstorms. They create emotions within us, right? Then nature is also connected to inner peace. For example, in today's modern life, we face these problems, right? But to overcome this problem, we need nature because it offers us these positive things that you can also talk about. Then nature offers a corrective to materialism. ये भी आप बता सकते हो. Then nature and environmental ethics are co-aligned. Then development based versus nature का डिबेट भी आप ले सकते हो, right? Governance में भी nature की बात कर सकते हो. Then indigenous tribal communities, okay, how they their lifestyle is rooted in what is natural. Okay, then climate change भी ला सकते हो, but it is distantly connected. Okay, then nature also gives us hope. Okay, the cyclical things. काउंटर पर्सपेक्टिव भी दे सकते हो इसमें कि नेचर इज नॉट ऑलवेज पीसफुल, जैसे ये कुछ चीज़ें डिस्ट्रक्टिव है, हमें डिस्ट्रॉय कर सकती है ना। तो ये पर्सपेक्टिव कहता है कि डू नॉट रोमांटिसाइज द नेचर, रोमांटिसाइज करना ये काफ़ी नहीं है। ओके, देन ये क्वेश्चन आप रेज कर सकते हो for your essay. What is nature? What is spirit? How does nature symbolize the spirit? What happens when we forget this relationship and what we should do way forward? इस सवालों के आंसर देते भी आप कर सकते हो, है ना। मल्टी डायमेंशनल पर्सपेक्टिव जो हमने अब तक देखा है वो सब आप ला सकते हो इसमें। ओके, एंड फाइनली कंक्लूजन। ओके, कंक्लूजन में आप ये कह सकते हो नेचर इज मोर देन रिसोर्स, इट इज अ रिविलेशन टू अस। Okay, why? Because all these things you have to summarize in your conclusion, so that way you can write the essay. So yes guys, have you understood? Yes, ये सेक्शन ए का पहला essay समझ में आ गया आपको? प्लीज रिस्पॉन्ड। Second is about, again, mind. This year the theme of the mind is repeated. Okay, and here they talk about a well-educated mind. And what are the attributes of well-educated mind? It always, this is important, have more questions than answers. Okay, so it faces or raises more question than the answer it has got. So you have to interpret the topic initially, that education is not merely accumulation of information. So what happens in true education? It expands curiosity. Okay, it expands curiosity and inquiry. Okay, more knowledge leads to greater awareness of the unknown, है ना। जितना हमारा ज्ञान बढ़ता है उतना हमें मालूम होता है कि हमें बहुत कुछ मालूम नहीं है, ये आपको बताना है। Then decode the statement, expand the terms, like well educated mind का मतलब क्या है? जो क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग करता है, जो क्यूरियस एंड ओपन है, जो एविडेंस को रिस्पेक्ट करता है, जो इंटेलेक्चुअली हम्बल है, एंड द वन विच इज विलिंग टू रिवाइज द बिलीफ, इसको कहते हैं एजुकेटेड माइंड, है ना। देन व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय हैविंग मोर क्वेश्चंस देन आंसर, ये भी एक्सप्लेन करो। इसका मतलब ये है रिकॉग्नाइजिंग द कम्प्लेक्सिटी ऑफ द लाइफ और टॉपिक्स, challenging our own assumptions, right? Exploring uncertain areas and seeking deeper understanding. It means, it implies that you have more questions than answer. Now, what is central paradox in this topic? The more we know, the more we realize what we do not know. So what we do not know is always greater than what we know when we know more. Okay, so our ignorance is revealed when our knowledge increases. So new unknown हमें मालूम हो जाते हैं, है ना, and curiosity बढ़ जाती है. So knowledge creates questioning and questioning further leads to deeper knowledge. ये cyclical है ना। हाँ, so इस चेन को फॉलो करो आप। पहले इंफॉर्मेशन आती है, उससे हमारा नॉलेज बढ़ता है। नॉलेज से हमें क्या मिलता है? अंडरस्टैंडिंग। अंडरस्टैंडिंग की वजह से हमारा क्वेश्चनिंग का कैपेसिटी बढ़ता है। क्वेश्चनिंग से हमें विजडम आता है, एंड विजडम इज व्हाट ट्रू एजुकेशन इज। सो कौन से सवाल एजुकेटेड माइंड में आते हैं? ये सारे सवाल आते हैं। व्हाई इज दिस ट्रू? व्हाट इज एविडेंस इज देयर? व्हाट assumptions आर इन्वॉल्व? आर दे वैलिड? What is alternate explanation? What are the consequences? What remains unknown yet? ये सब सवाल एजुकेटेड मन में पैदा होते हैं, है ना। So Socrates talks about intellectual humility, so you can connect it to topic. Even science talks about questioning, and because of questioning, science progresses. Like you can give example of Newton, Darwin, Einstein, and even modern science or scientist. Then you can also talk about scientific temper and what are its attributes. These are all attributes of scientific temper. Okay. Then how questioning acts as an engine of social progress. So for example, social reforms were driven by questioning the unethical practices. ये भी आप ला सकते हो, right? Then in democracy, why questioning is important? Because it brings about accountability. ये भी आपको बताना है ना? So accountability का dimension आप इससे कनेक्ट करो. And what are the means to do it? ये institution आप mention करो. RTI, मीडिया, सिविल सोसाइटी, पार्लियामेंट, लेजिस्लेचर, जुडिशरी, है ना? और इसमें क्या बताना है? क्वेश्चनिंग स्ट्रेंथन्स नॉट वीकन्स डेमोक्रेटिक गवर्नेंस, है ना? बहुत बार लोग ऐसा मानते हैं ना कि सवाल क्यों उठा रहे हो, बट सवाल उठाना यही डेमोक्रेसी को स्ट्रेंथन कर रहा है, ये आपको बताना है. देन इवन इन पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन शो इट्स रिलेवेंस, राइट? एन एजुकेटेड सिविल सर्वेंट शुड नॉट ब्लाइंडली फॉलो द रूल्स बट आस्क दिस क्वेश्चन. ओके. देन इथिकल सवाल भी आते हैं कंटेम्प्रेरी एरिया में, उसके बारे में भी आप बोल सकते हो, राइट? हाँ. देन टेक्नोलॉजी का डायमेंशन भी आप कनेक्ट कर सकते हो. दैट टेक्नोलॉजी टेल अस व्हाट वी कैन डू बट इट इज व्हाट वी शुड डू. इसमें क्वेश्चनिंग इन्वॉल्व है ना? देन पर्सनल ग्रोथ के बारे में भी, ये रिपीट हो रहा है थोड़ा सा बट अगेन यू कैन ब्रिंग इट बैक. ओके. देन इंटेलेक्चुअल ह्यूमिलिटी जो हमने पहले बात की थी, उसके डायमेंशन को एक्सप्लोर करो. ये सब सवाल मन में पैदा होते हैं, है ना, बिकॉज ऑफ क्वेश्चनिंग. क्रिएटिविटी ऑल्सो हैपन्स बिकॉज ऑफ क्वेश्चनिंग, है ना? देन यू कैन क्रिटिसाइज रोट एजुकेशन, है ना, जो इन चीज़ों पे एम्फेसिस दे रहा है. ऑन द अदर हैंड एजुकेशन को क्या प्रमोट करना चाहिए, तो ये प्रमोट करना चाहिए, तभी तो स्टूडेंट्स का क्वेश्चनिंग पावर बढ़ेगा, ये आपको बताना है, राइट? इवन टीचर्स हैव रोल टू एनकरेज क्वेश्चनिंग, राइट? नॉट मियरली प्रोवाइड द आंसर्स. काउंटर आर्ग्यूमेंट ये हो सकता है दैट टू मच क्वेश्चनिंग कैन लीड टू पैरालिसिस. ये सच है ना? सो ये हो सकता है दैट एक्सेसिव स्केप्टिसिज्म, क्वेश्चन एवरीथिंग अननेसेसरली. इनडिसीजन हो सकता है कि आप निर्णय नहीं ले रहे हो. सिनिसिज्म, अननेसेसरली पेसिमिज्म, इनएबिलिटी टू एक्ट, आप काम ही नहीं कर पाते हो. तो ये क्वेश्चनिंग की वजह से, एक्सेसिव क्वेश्चनिंग की वजह से हो सकता है ना? तो आपका गोल क्या होना चाहिए? रिफ्लेक्टिव एक्शन, नॉट परमानेंट डाउट. ओके. तो ये साइकिल आपको फॉलो करना है, ये सब साइकिल आपको हेल्प करेगा. ओके. तो ये क्वेश्चनिंग के बाद होगा. देन सिंथेसिस भी आप ऑफर कर सकते हो, राइट? इसमें हाँ, विजडम का मतलब बता सकते हो, है ना? सिंथेसिस ऑफर कर सकते हो, विजडम का मतलब बता सकते हो. देन कंक्लूजन. ओके. तो आपको ये बताना है कि अनएजुकेटेड माइंड सीक्स सर्टेनिटी, द एजुकेटेड माइंड सीक्स अंडरस्टैंडिंग. ये आपका फाइनल मैसेज होना चाहिए. ओके. हाँ. और ये भी कंक्लूजन दे सकते हो ट्रू एजुकेटेड पर्सन के बारे में कि कौन है वो पर्सन, इसके एट्रीब्यूट्स आप लिख सकते हो. सो दैट विल बी योर कंक्लूजन. सो हैव यू अंडरस्टूड कंक्लूजन गाइस? यस. ये सेक्शन बी का सेकंड टॉपिक समझ में आ गया आपको? प्लीज रिस्पॉन्ड. इसके बारे में, थर्ड टॉपिक के बारे में हमने इथिक्स में एक सवाल लिया था. इनएक्शन के बारे में, इसको ओमिशन भी बोलते हैं, है ना? इथिक्स इज नॉट ओनली अबाउट कमीशन, इट इज ऑल्सो अबाउट ओमिशन. तो एग्जैक्टली सेम थीम के बारे में ऐसे आया है. तो देखो, अगर आप अच्छे से टेस्ट सीरीज ज्वाइन करते हो, उसको सिंसियरली सॉल्व करते हो, या एटलीस्ट उसके मॉडल आंसर भी पढ़ लेते हो, यू विल हैव इनफ मटेरियल टू राइट द आंसर्स. ओके. सिर्फ इग्नोर नहीं करना है. Okay, so let's look at this. Shelving hard decision is the least ethical course. Okay, so shelving का मतलब क्या है? Avoiding, postponing, है ना? So इसमें क्या आपको बताना है? Hard decision और difficult decision involve competing values, और उनको resolve करना, उस conflict को resolve करना आसान नहीं होता है, ये आपको बताना है. Avoidance doesn't mean eliminating consequences, ये भी आपको बताना है ना? कि अवॉइड करते हैं, कुछ लोगों को ऐसा लगता है अवॉइड किया तो कुछ नहीं होगा. नहीं, कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस फिर भी होंगे, है ना? समटाइम्स नॉट डिसाइडिंग इटसेल्फ इज अ डिसीजन, ये भी आपको बताना है. सो यू आर गोइंग डीप इनटू टॉपिक. सो लेट्स डिकोड द स्टेटमेंट. व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय शेल्विंग? तो इसके मतलब आप जान लो. पहले अवॉइडिंग रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी और पोस्टपोनिंग इंडिफिनिटली, है ना, पासिंग द प्रॉब्लम फॉरवर्ड, दूसरों को ट्रांसफर करना, या चूजिंग कन्वीनियंस और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. और हार्ड डिसीजन का मतलब क्या होता है? इट इम्प्लाइज अनसर्टेनिटी, कंपीटिंग वैल्यूज, कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस प्रॉब्लमेटिक हो सकते हैं, या इसका कॉस्ट बहुत हो सकता है, पॉलिटिकल एंड सोशल, इसलिए लोग अवॉइड करते हैं. सेंट्रल पैराडॉक्स क्या है? पैराडॉक्स ये है दैट नॉट टू डिसाइड इज इटसेल्फ अ डिसीजन, है ना. सो इससे क्या मालूम होता है? इनएक्शन डजंट स्टॉप इवेंट्स. आपने कुछ नहीं किया तो कुछ नहीं होगा, ऐसा नहीं होता है. एग्जिस्टिंग फोर्सेस कंटिन्यू टू ऑपरेट. फोर्सेस काम करते ही रहेंगे अगर आपने कुछ नहीं किया तो. डिले में अलाउ हार्म टू अक्यूमुलेट, है ना. अगर आप डिले करोगे ज़्यादा तो वो जो प्रॉब्लम है वो बढ़ता ही हो सकता है, जा सकता है. एंड कॉस्ट मे बी पेड बाय फ्यूचर जनरेशन और अदर्स. तो ये भी अनएथिकल है ना. सो इनएक्शन इज नॉट इक्वल टू न्यूट्रलिटी. बहुत बार लोग इनएक्शन को न्यूट्रलिटी से इक्वेट करते हैं, विच इज नॉट ट्रू. ओके, सो व्हाट इज सेंट्रल ethical distinction here is prudent postponement versus irresponsible shelving. अब prudent delay क्यों करते हैं हम? क्योंकि हमें और evidence चाहिए, हमें स्टेक होल्डर को कंसल्ट करना है, हमें और लीगल क्लैरिटी चाहिए, हमें अनसर्टेनिटी कम करना है, इसलिए हम प्रूडेंटली, वाइजली, सगेशियसली डिले कर रहे हैं. बट इररिस्पॉन्सिबल शेल्विंग का मतलब क्या है? हम उसको डिले इसलिए कर रहे हैं क्योंकि हमें क्रिटिसिज्म नहीं चाहिए, या अकाउंटेबिलिटी नहीं चाहिए, या हमें सिर्फ खुद का कन्वीनियंस देखना है, या हम वो करना ही नहीं चाहते. दैट इज इररिस्पॉन्सिबल शेल्विंग. ये डिफरेंशिएट आपको करना है. ओके, डिले फॉर बेटर डिसीजन इज प्रूडेंस, व्हाइल डिले टू अवॉइड डिसीजन इज इररिस्पॉन्सिबल शेल्विंग और इवेजन. देन यू कैन ऑल्सो डिफरेंशिएट बिटवीन एक्शन वर्सेस ओमिशन. ओके, ये भी इंपॉर्टेंट है आपके लिए, है ना. और इसमें भी इथिकल इशू कैसे हो सकते हैं ये भी आपको बताना है. देन एक्सप्लोर व्हाई एस्पेक्ट, व्हाई पीपल डू इट. ओके, सो दे हैव फियर ऑफ फेल्यूर, दे हैव फियर ऑफ क्रिटिसिज्म, है ना. स्टेटस को का बायस है, वो उनको लगता है ऐसे ही रहना चाहिए, जो है वो अच्छा है. देन लॉस एवर्जन, दे फियर द लॉस, दैट्स व्हाई दे आर अवॉइड टू डू इट. पॉलिटिकल कन्वीनियंस है, पॉलिटिकल इंटरेस्ट इन्वॉल्व है कुछ ना करने में. डिफ्यूजन ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, एक आदमी रिस्पॉन्सिबल नहीं, सो एवरीवन थिंक्स दैट ही शुड नॉट डू एनीथिंग. ब्यूरोक्रेटिक इनर्शिया है, स्लोनेस, रेड टेपिज्म, ये सब है ना. सो इससे साइकोलॉजिकल कंफर्ट पैदा होता है बाय अवॉइडिंग रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. बट कॉस्ट क्या होती है? देखो, इकोलॉजिकल है, सिस्टमिक करप्शन बढ़ता है, पब्लिक हेल्थ इमरजेंसी आ सकती है, वायलेंस हो सकता है, डिजास्टर बढ़ सकता है, ये होता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, स्मॉल फ्लॉ in a bridge eventually leads to its collapse if ignored, not repaired on time, right? हाँ, ये डायमेंशन ठीक है. इथिकल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी भी आप बता सकते हो, है ना, क्वेश्चन करना. पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में भी डिफिकल्ट डिसीजन कौन से होते हैं जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर को फेस करने पड़ते हैं, उसका लिस्ट दे दो आप बहुत बार, है ना. देन प्रोसेस आप इन्वॉल्व करो जो इथिकल डायलेमा रिजॉल्व करने में होती है, सेम प्रोसेस यहाँ होती है ना, ये आपको बताना है प्रोसेस. देन लीडरशिप का रोल एम्फसाइज करो, हाउ लीडरशिप इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर मेकिंग डिफिकल्ट डिसीजंस, है ना. हाँ, उसके लिए क्या क्या चाहिए, है ना, ये आपको बताना है. देन इथिकल थियरीज कैन ऑल्सो बी ब्रॉट, डिओंटोलॉजी, यूटिलिटारियनिज्म, वर्च्यू एथिक्स, है ना, ये भी आप ला सकते हो, इनका कॉम्बिनेशन बता सकते हो. वैल्यू का कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, ये भी बता सकते हो, है ना. हाँ, काउंटर आर्ग्यूमेंट ये हो सकता है कि डिले कभी कभी इथिकल हो सकता है ना. कभी कभी आप जो डिले करते हो वो इथिकल हो सकता है. हाँ, कुछ लोग ये आर्ग्यू कर सकते हैं ना, इथिकल डिले में इंप्रूव द क्वालिटी ऑफ डिसीजन. कुछ लोग ये भी कह सकते हैं कि प्री मैच्योर एक्शन कैन कॉज हार्म, है ना. तो ये भी काउंटर आर्ग्यूमेंट हो सकता है. तो आपको मैसेज क्या देना है? एक्ट वाइजली विद इन द टाइम. ओके, हाँ, तो ये आपको बताना है. कंटेम्प्रेरी रिलेवेंस भी बताओ, कहाँ कहाँ ये ध्यान में रखना है, हार्ड डिसीजन लेने हैं और वो वक्त पे लेने हैं, ये कहाँ कहाँ इंपॉर्टेंट है, इन विच प्लेसेस, ये आपको बताना है. Intergenerational ethics is not that important. Now let's look at conclusion. Conclusion is this: ethical leadership lies between two, the wisdom of deliberate and the courage to decide. Okay, deliberate करने का wisdom चाहिए. Deliberate means thinking, but courage भी होना चाहिए to decide, है ना. सिर्फ thinking से paralyze नहीं होना चाहिए. So ये message आप दे सकते हो towards the end of your essay. So guys, have you understood this second last topic of section B? Yes. Before we move to last topic of today's discussion, please respond in chat box. इस तरह का भी ऐसे हमने इस साल टेस्ट सीरीज में लिया था. इट वॉज अबाउट लीडरशिप. हु इज अ गुड लीडर, है ना. इस टॉपिक में दिया है द वन हु फॉलोज द फॉलोअर. ओके, अ गुड लीडर इज द वन हु फॉलोज द फॉलोअर. सो क्या बताया है इसमें? पैराडॉक्सिकल व्यू है ना. ये लीडरशिप का पैराडॉक्सिकल व्यू है. तो आपको डिकोड करना है इस स्टेटमेंट को कि लीडरशिप इज नॉट मियरली कमांडिंग और गिविंग ऑर्डर. इट ऑल्सो मीन्स लिसनिंग टू फॉलोअर्स, लर्निंग फ्रॉम देम एंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग देम, एंड देन थ्रू दिस लीडिंग देम. सो लीड करने के लिए आपको पहले लोगों को सुनना पड़ता है, उनको समझना पड़ता है, उनसे सीखना पड़ता है, उनके बारे में सीखना पड़ता है. ओके, सो लेट्स डिकोड द स्टेटमेंट. फॉलोइंग फॉलोअर का मतलब क्या है? देखो, अंडरस्टैंड द नीड्स ऑफ पीपल और फॉलोअर्स, टेक फीडबैक फ्रॉम देम, लर्न फ्रॉम देयर एक्सपीरियंसेस, ओके, रिस्पेक्ट देयर लेजिटिमेट एस्पिरेशंस, एक्सपेक्टेशंस, एंड रिस्पॉन्ड टू जेन्युइन कंसर्न. These are the different dimensions of following the followers. But that doesn't mean blindly following popular opinion. ये भी आपको differentiate करना है, ठीक है. अब इसमें सेंट्रल पैराडॉक्स क्या है? कन्वेंशनल मॉडल ये होता है कि लीडर गिव्स डायरेक्शन एंड डायरेक्शन इज फॉलोड बाय फॉलोअर्स. बट डीपर अंडरस्टैंडिंग क्या कहता है? फॉलोअर कम फर्स्ट, दे ऑफर यू एक्सपीरियंस एंड फीडबैक एंड एस्पिरेशंस. लीडर लिसन टू दीज ऑल थिंग्स and learns from it, and then they lead people. So leader leads best after learning to listen. That is the deeper model. Okay, ये आपको बताना है ना. अब आपको ये भी बताना है कि फॉर्मल अथॉरिटी के वजह से आपको क्या क्या मिल सकता है. तो ये सब मिल सकता है: पावर, पोजीशन, लीगल मैंडेट, कमांड. बट जेन्युइन लीडरशिप के लिए इतना काफी नहीं है. इट रिक्वायर्स ट्रस्ट, क्रेडिबिलिटी, एम्पथी, कम्युनिकेशन, मोरल अथॉरिटी. लेकिन ये कब आएगा? व्हेन लीडर लर्न टू लिसन टू देयर फॉलोअर्स. तब ट्रस्ट बिल्ड होता है, तब क्रेडिबिलिटी आती है, तब एम्पथी क्रिएट होती है. आप उनको अच्छे से जान सकते हो, वो आपको अच्छे से जान सकते हैं, आप उनके साथ अच्छे से बात कर सकते हो, एंड आपके पास मोरल अथॉरिटी आ जाती है. वाई शुड लीडर फॉलो फॉलोअर्स? वाई एस्पेक्ट इज इंपॉर्टेंट इन एनी एसे. ओके, सो फर्स्ट, फॉलोअर्स हैव ग्रास रूट नॉलेज. ये सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है. ओके, फॉलोअर्स के पास पहले क्या होता है? फर्स्ट हैंड एक्सपीरियंस होता है. दे एक्सपीरियंस पॉलिसीज डायरेक्टली. सो पॉलिसी का इंपैक्ट उनके ऊपर डायरेक्ट होता है. देन दे कैन आइडेंटिफाई प्रॉब्लम्स अर्ली बिफोर दे बिकम मेजर इश्यूज. दे प्रोवाइड इंस्टेंट फीडबैक. दे कैन ऑल्सो जनरेट इनोवेटिव आइडियाज, एंड दे कैन ऑल्सो ओन द डिसीजंस व्हेन दे आर इन्वॉल्व इन मेकिंग डिसीजंस. ओनरशिप आ जाती है ना. सो आपको ये भी एक्सेप्ट करना है दैट नो लीडर possess all the knowledge required for complex decisions. So he must rely on others and get at least minimum inputs, right? So listening is the first act of leadership because listening helps to know all these things. Okay, हाँ, ये आपको बताना है. Then listening is not weakness, information is an advantage. Then there is a concept known as servant leadership. Okay, in this question, how can I help others? ये primary importance है. It is not about oneself, it is about others. ओके, सो कोर क्वालिटीज क्या है सर्वेंट लीडरशिप की, ये सब है ना, ये आपको बताना है. देन गांधी ऑल्सो डिमॉन्स्ट्रेटेड सच काइंड ऑफ लीडरशिप when he connected with the masses, inspired them to take part into freedom struggle. ये सब आपको बताना है ना. Then talk about democratic leadership and how it is about all listening. Then you can also talk about citizen-centric governance and how it is also about following the followers through field visits, public hearing, जनता दरबार, social audits, community participation, grievance redressal. ये सब आपको कैसे help करता है, ये आपको बताना है. Then you can also look at followers as co-creators, right? They help us to innovate, they become our critic, they become our stakeholder, okay, they become our problem solver. ये सब आपको बताना है. Okay, then you can also talk about psychological effect of such listening. Okay, then you can also talk about innovation, how innovation is brought by such leadership who follows the follower. Okay, then you can also talk about such leadership in crisis, whenever there are natural crises, man-made crises, how these followers become asset of leader who listen to them. इसमें tolerance भी बताना है, okay, but limits भी बताने हैं following followers. It may lead to all these things: populism, majoritarianism, short-termism, misinformation, driven decisions, mob influence, ये भी हो सकता है ना. तो इसमें आपको counter भी देना है, okay. A leader must distinguish between two things: what people want today versus what society needs tomorrow. ये दोनों भी differentiate करना आना चाहिए leader को. Okay, then you have to also differentiate responsiveness versus populism. Responsiveness means this: listen to citizens, understand their concern, use evidence, respect their rights, consider long-term welfare. Populism का मतलब क्या है? Satisfy immediate emotions, seek popularity, ignore sustainability, ignore minority rights, prioritize short-term gain. है ना. तो आप कंटेम्प्रेरी एग्जाम्पल देख के इसको प्रूव कर सकते हो ऑफ डिफरेंट पॉलिसीज. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी भी आप इसमें ला सकते हो कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी को सामने रख के आपको डिसीजन लेने हैं. देन सिंथेसिस भी बता सकते हो. गुड लीडरशिप इज नाइदर टॉप डाउन एंड बॉटम अप सरेंडर, इट इज दिस साइकिल, ओके, जिसमें लिसनिंग, लर्निंग, कंसल्टेशन, इंटरप्रिटेशन, डिसीजन मेकिंग, देन लीडिंग एंड लर्निंग अगेन, ये सब हो रहा है. ये आपको बताना है. इसमें क्या क्या चाहिए? विजन चाहिए, एथिक्स चाहिए, प्रॉपर जजमेंट चाहिए, लॉन्ग टर्म डायरेक्शन चाहिए. सो कंक्लूजन में आप क्या बता सकते हो, है ना. लीडर मस्ट डील विद पैराडॉक्स दैट फॉलो देयर वॉइसेस बट नॉट देयर प्रिजुडाइसेस, फॉलो देयर एस्पिरेशन बट नॉट मेयरली इम्पल्सेस. ये लीडर को आना चाहिए. समझ में आ रहा है? हाँ. फॉलो देयर एक्सपीरियंस but not merely opinions. Follow constitutional morality when deciding what is right, है ना. ये आपको फाइनल मैसेज देना है. सो ये भी ऐसे टेस्ट कर रहा है कि हाउ मच मैच्योर यू आर टू अंडरस्टैंड द क्वालिटी ऑफ ट्रू लीडरशिप. ओके, सो ओवरऑल डिस्कशन से आपको यूपीएससी के ऐसे पेपर के रिक्वायरमेंट क्लियर हो रहे हैं, राइट? डू यू एग्री विथ मी गाइस? यस. ये आपको क्लियर हो रहा है धीरे धीरे कि यूपीएससी का जो ऐसे का पेपर है वो आप में क्या देखना चाहता है, किन चीज़ों की अंडरस्टैंडिंग देख रहा है. इफ़ यू एनालाइज ऑल PYQs, नॉट ओनली दिस ईयर्स बट प्रीवियस फ्यू ईयर्स, द इंक्रीजिंग इंक्लिनेशन ऑफ ऐसे पेपर इज टूवर्ड्स philosophical topics, but they demand general awareness. Okay, general awareness of polity, economics, society, technology, environment, legal, cultural, and other dimensions as well. So, have you understood all these inputs? Yes, guys. Oh, ये PDF मैं आपसे शेयर करूँगा, डोंट वरी, ऑन योर क्लासरूम ऐप, है ना. हाँ, एंड इसका यूज करके आप एक अच्छे से ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो बाय एक्सपांडिंग इट इनटू एटलीस्ट 1000 वर्ड्स. और मैं आपको बताता हूँ, आई हैव शेयर्ड यू मोर देन नेसेसरी डायमेंशंस. ओके, सो इतनी ज़्यादा डायमेंशन आपको नहीं चाहिए 1000 वर्ड के लिए. 8 to 10 डायमेंशंस आर मोर देन इनफ. मैंने तो कभी कभी 20 डायमेंशन भी शेयर किए. यू डोंट हैव टू यूज ऑल ऑफ देम. ओके, जो डायरेक्टली कनेक्टेड डायमेंशन है उन्हीं को यूज करो, जो डिस्टेंटली कनेक्टेड है उनको नहीं लाया तो भी चलेगा. ऑल राइट. सो अगर कोई इसके बाद भी डाउट है तो यू हैव माई नंबर, यू कैन डायरेक्टली कनेक्ट इट विथ मी आइदर इन लेक्चर और टेक्स्ट के थ्रू, एंड आई लेट यू नो हाउ टू राइट बेटर एसेज. ओके, हाँ. सो एनी क्वेश्चन सो फार, और शैल वी स्टॉप today's online session? Yes, please let me know. Yes, guys, shall we stop? Shall we say good night?